Someone across the room opens their mouth. You feel it before you understand it. Your jaw tightens. Your eyes water. You yawn. You didn't choose this. Nobody asked your permission. So why did your body just copy a stranger's face without your consent? Most people think yawning is about oxygen. It isn't. Scientists have tested that theory for decades, and it keeps failing. You could be sitting in a room pumped full of pure oxygen, and you'd still yawn on schedule. You could be exercising, heart pounding, lungs working overtime, and you'd yawn anyway. So if it's not about air, what is it about? The real answer is far stranger. Yawning isn't primarily a breathing behavior at all. It's a signal. And the fact that it spreads from person to person, silently, involuntarily, might be one of the oldest forms of communication your species ever developed. Here's where it gets strange. Not everyone catches a yawn. Some people watch someone yawn directly in front of them and feel nothing. Others yawn just reading the word yawn in a sentence like this one. Are you fighting the urge right now? Most readers are. The psychologist Robert Provine spent years studying this exact behavior in the lab, and what he found reshaped how scientists think about the act entirely. Provine discovered that yawning is one of the most contagious behaviors known in humans. Just seeing a photograph of a yawning face was enough to trigger one in nearly half of his test subjects. Not a video, not a sound, a still image. That's when researchers started asking a different question. If contagious yawning isn't about oxygen, and it isn't really voluntary, maybe it evolved to do something else entirely. Maybe it evolved to synchronize a group. Picture your ancestors 40,000 years ago. No clocks, no phones, no alarms. Just a small band of humans who needed to sleep, wake, hunt, and rest together, because survival depended on the group moving as one unit. A predator doesn't wait for stragglers. A group that falls out of rhythm is a group that gets picked off one by one. Now imagine a simple biological signal that could ripple through that group in seconds. One person feels drowsy, they yawn. The people around them catch it. Within moments, the whole group's alertness begins shifting together. No words needed, no meeting called. Just a wave of contagious signaling moving from body to body like a subtle alarm bell for fatigue. That theory explains why yawning spreads. But it doesn't explain why some people are far more susceptible to catching it than others. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. Researchers Ivan Norcia and Elisabetta Palagi ran a study observing real yawning contagion between people who already knew each other out in ordinary daily life, not in a lab. What they found was striking. You are significantly more likely to catch a yawn from someone close to you. Family? A best friend? A partner? You are far less likely to catch one from a stranger and even less likely from someone you actively dislike. Read that again. Your body is quietly ranking your relationships. Every time you don't catch someone's yawn, some part of your nervous system may be telling you something about the emotional distance between you and that person. Unsettling, isn't it? This connects to something even deeper. Scientists studying empathy have found a pattern. People who score higher on standard empathy tests tend to catch yawns more easily. People who score lower, including some individuals on the autism spectrum, according to research by Atsushi Senju and colleagues, are less likely to catch a contagious yawn at all. That doesn't mean anyone who doesn't yawn back lacks empathy. Human behavior is never that simple. But it does suggest that this ancient, involuntary reflex might be quietly tangled up with your capacity to feel what someone else is feeling. A silent test running constantly in the background of every relationship you have. And this isn't just a human trait. Contagious yawning has been documented far beyond our own species. Primatologist Franz de Waal and his colleagues found that chimpanzees yawn contagiously too, especially in response to yawns from other chimps they're bonded with. Dogs have been shown to catch yawns from their human owners. Even some birds show versions of this synchronized behavior, which raises the terrifying part of all this. If contagious yawning really is a form of empathy detection, an ancient synchronization signal passed down through millions of years of evolution, then every time you yawn in response to someone else, you might be revealing something you never meant to say out loud. A silent confession of how close you actually feel to the person across from you. Think about the last time you sat across from a stranger on a train or in a waiting room and caught their yawn without meaning to. In that split second, some ancient circuit in your brain may have quietly decided this person mattered. Not consciously, not with any words. Just a reflex passed down from a time when your ancestors' survival depended on knowing, instantly, who was part of your group and who wasn't. There's another layer to this that researchers are still untangling. Yawning tends to spike right before sleep and right after waking, which lines up with the theory that it helps regulate brain temperature. Some scientists, including physiologist Andrew Gallup, have proposed that yawning cools the brain by increasing blood flow and drawing in cooler air, which would explain why you yawn more in warm environments and less in cold ones. So yawning may be doing two jobs at once: cooling an overheating brain and quietly signaling social connection to the people around you. Two ancient functions, hiding inside one reflex you barely notice. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. You cannot control this. You cannot decide to feel more connected to someone and force yourself to catch their yawn. You cannot fake it convincingly enough to fool your own nervous system. It happens or it doesn't. And either way, it's telling on you. So the next time you're in a meeting or on a date or sitting with family at dinner and someone yawns, pay attention to what your own body does next. Notice whether your jaw tightens. Notice whether your eyes start to water. That small, involuntary movement isn't random. It's a signal that survived every ice age, every migration, every collapse of every civilization that came before you. It moved from face to face across tens of thousands of years, quietly synchronizing the humans who trusted each other and quietly separating them from the ones who didn't. Consider how strange this actually is compared to almost every other behavior your body performs. You blink because your eyes need moisture. You sweat because your body needs cooling. You flinch because a threat appeared. Every one of those reflexes exists to protect you directly. But contagious yawning doesn't protect you at all. It protects the group. It exists because your ancestors weren't just individuals trying to survive. They were nodes in a network, and the network needed a way to stay synchronized. That distinction matters more than it seems. Most of what your body does is selfish, in the biological sense. It serves your own survival first. Contagious yawning breaks that pattern. It's one of the rare reflexes that seems to exist purely for the benefit of the people around you. Which means, somewhere deep in your evolutionary history, staying connected to a group was worth as much as breathing, sweating, or flinching away from danger. Scientists have tried to measure exactly how deep this reflex runs by testing it across ages. Children under about 4 years old rarely catch yawns at all. The behavior seems to switch on gradually, developing alongside a child's growing ability to understand that other people have their own separate minds and feelings. Researchers studying child development, including work built on Atsushi Senju's findings, have noted that contagious yawning tends to strengthen as a child's social awareness matures. In other words, this isn't just a reflex you're born with fully formed. It's something that grows in step with your capacity to understand other people. Isn't that a strange thing for a yawn to be tangled up with? There's also a darker thread running through this research. As people age into later adulthood, susceptibility to contagious yawning tends to decline again. Some scientists suspect this connects to gradual changes in the same brain networks responsible for reading other people's emotional states. Others aren't convinced the link is that simple, but the pattern itself is consistent. This reflex rises with your growing social understanding as a child, and it can quietly fade as that same understanding shifts with age. A lifelong barometer, rising and falling with how attuned you are to the minds around you. Now think about what happens in the opposite direction. Instead of asking who catches a yawn, ask who triggers one. Research on this yawn hierarchy has found something almost uncomfortable about status. In several studies, people were more likely to catch a yawn from someone they perceived as socially dominant or high status than the reverse. Watch a room full of coworkers during a long meeting. When the most senior person yawns, it tends to spread. When the newest intern yawns, it often doesn't. Some researchers believe this reflects an ancient pattern where paying close attention to the emotional and physical state of a group's most influential members carried a survival advantage. Falling out of sync with the group leader mattered more than falling out of sync with anyone else. Put all of these threads together and a picture starts to form. Contagious yawning tracks emotional closeness. It tracks social status. It tracks the development of empathy itself, rising through childhood and shifting again later in life. It isn't a glitch in your biology. It's closer to a hidden instrument, constantly and silently measuring your social world without ever asking your permission. This is why the modern world creates such strange collisions with an ancient reflex. You now spend hours a day with people you'll never physically stand near. A face on a screen during a video call, a stranger's video autoplaying while you scroll. And yet, Robert Provine's original discovery still applies here. A photograph was enough. A video is more than enough. Which means this reflex, built for small bands of humans who depended on each other to survive, is now firing constantly in response to faces that have no idea you exist. Your ancient social radar is running non-stop in an environment it was never designed for. There's an odd comfort hidden inside all of this too. In a world where genuine connection can feel harder to prove, harder to measure, and easier to fake with the right words, contagious yawning remains stubbornly, irritatingly honest. You cannot perform it convincingly. You cannot talk your way into someone else's nervous system deciding you matter. Either that ancient circuit lights up or it doesn't. In a world full of performance, that might be one of the last truly unfiltered signals left. So the next time you're in a meeting, or on a date, or sitting with family at dinner and someone yawns, pay attention to what your own body does next. Notice whether your jaw tightens. Notice whether your eyes start to water. That small, involuntary movement isn't random. It's a signal that survived every ice age, every migration, every collapse of every civilization that came before you. It moved from face to face across tens of thousands of years, quietly synchronizing the humans who trusted each other and quietly separating them from the ones who didn't. Someone near you will yawn again today, and whether you catch it or not, some ancient part of your brain has already answered a question you never consciously asked.